All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children. And God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Palimony, Taxmen, Reparations for Imaginary Patriarchy. Written by Riker. Available now. Links in description. Palimony, a cold shower for comfortable lies. I have seen a man sit across a conference table from 3 strangers in lanyards. Present time stamped messages, eyewitness testimony, and a spotless record, and be told none of it mattered, because somewhere in the building a woman had narrated a feeling. I have watched that man's face when the full weight of the new theology landed on him, that his evidence was inadmissible in the court of someone else's experience, that his innocence was not a defense but an aggravation, that the very act of defending himself confirmed the diagnosis. That look is not confusion. It is vertigo, the nausea of a mind that still believes in reality, discovering it has been reassigned to a world where the accuser authors the verdict and calls it justice. The theory arrives in the language of compassion. It whispers that the vulnerable have been silenced, that power has monopolized truth, that we must finally listen, and who but a monster refuses to listen? But the kindness is a hooked claw. What actually gets installed is a monopoly on moral authority, so total that disagreement becomes evidence of guilt, that factual correction becomes violence, that the demand for evidence becomes the very abuse it was meant to expose. The institution that adopted it was not a revolutionary cell. It was a corporate HR department, a diversity office, a campus tribunal, the mundane machinery of everyday institutional life. Now, repurposed as a court where feelings are testimony, discomfort is injury, and the accused enters already condemned by the grammar of the process itself. The vector away from natural law is precise and devastating. Objective truth collapses into subjective narrative. Due process dissolves into therapeutic comfort. Reciprocity dies beneath one-way accountability. And veracity, the sacred correspondence between word and reality, is butchered to feed an ever-expanding vocabulary of harm. Each step sounded reasonable. Each step was presented as mercy. And each step moved the entire machinery one more degree from the Aristotelian Thomistic architecture that made justice possible: proportionality, evidence, equal application, and the stubborn insistence that facts exist, whether or not we welcome them. Men feel this as vertigo, because the rules were rewritten without announcement, and the old grammar of fairness, evidence, chronology, intent, proportion, now functions as a confession of guilt. You cannot stand on a floor that has been declared a wall. You cannot defend yourself in a language that has been pre-classified as aggression. And you cannot name what is happening without being told that the act of naming is itself the proof that you deserve it. The case in plain English. The theory under the microscope is simple enough. Once the institutional fog clears, moral monopolies immune to competition. In its own terms, it claims to want to establish a hegemonic ethical framework where the dominant group, typically women or marginalized identities, defines the moral vocabulary, truth, and justice standards, rendering opposing viewpoints not merely incorrect, but inherently oppressive. thereby insulating their power from critique, competition, or empirical falsification. In practice, it enters through corporate DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion office as the mandatory adoption of lived experience as the supreme evidentiary standard in HR disputes, replacing objective due process with therapeutic governance where discomfort is treated as harm and the accuser's narrative is presumed true until disproven by the accuser's own standards. The natural law origin point is the Aristotelian Thomistic principle that justice requires proportionality, objective truth, and equal application of law. Natural law holds that the moral order is discoverable through reason and revelation, not invented by the powerful to serve their interests. It assumes a shared reality where facts exist independently of feelings. The distance from that origin is roughly 8/10. The theory inverts justice into a mechanism of resource extraction and status preservation, replacing the rule of law with the rule of vibes, where the moral monopoly dictates that its own self-interest is the definition of truth. The main movements, the non-veracious contract, turns veracity into semantic inflation. Epistemic sovereignty turns objective truth into subjectivization of reality. The therapeutic state turns due process into procedural inversion. Follow the fruit and the pattern becomes visible. The death of objective truth in public discourse. The rise of bureaucratic enforcers, DEI officers, with no accountability. The erosion of meritocracy in favor of identity representation. Abortion. The monopoly defines the fetus as property and the mother as sovereign, ignoring the natural law of the child's right to life. Depopulation. The focus on individual fulfillment over family duty leads to lower birth rates and social decay. Hold that shape in mind. The rest follows the consequences through the institution, then points back toward restoration. The moral monopoly, a cartography of epistemic theft. What the theory claims to want. The theory of the moral monopoly presents itself as justice's final evolution, a mechanism to protect the vulnerable, center the marginalized, and dismantle hidden oppression. Its stated goal is to establish an ethical framework where those historically denied voice now define the terms of moral reality. In its own accounting, this is compassion made structural. The marginalized possess lived experience that grants them epistemic authority no statistic, no precedent, and no legal tradition can override. Discomfort becomes evidence, testimony becomes verdict, identity becomes argument. The stated goal is permanent, unchallengeable epistemic sovereignty. The monopoly does not seek a seat at the table of debate. It seeks to declare the table itself oppressive, then replace it with a tribunal where its own voice is the only admissible testimony. Consider the logic. If oppression is systemic and invisible to those within the system, then only the oppressed can see it. If only the oppressed can see it, then only the oppressed can name it. If only the oppressed can name it, then any disagreement from outside the oppressed class is proof of the oppression's existence. The argument generates its own evidence, the accusation is the proof. The defense is the confession, circular, hermetic, irrefutable by design. The policy expression arrives as lived experience as supreme evidentiary standard, institutional rules requiring HR offices, university tribunals, and corporate compliance departments to treat subjective testimony as established fact, to treat discomfort as harm, and to invert the burden of proof. So the accused must disprove a feeling. He cannot cross-examine using standards dictated by the accuser's own framework. How it enters the institution. The moral monopoly does not conquer by force. It conquers by substitution, one definition at a time, one office at a time, one compliance training at a time. The pattern is consistent across institutions. First, a moral panic establishes urgency, statistics about wage gaps, campus assault, workplace microaggressions, systemic bias. The statistics need not survive scrutiny. They need only generate sufficient alarm to justify the appointment of a compliance officer, a diversity director, a Title IX coordinator, an institutional node whose budget depends on the continued existence of the problem it was created to solve. Then comes language capture. Equity replaces equality, same sound, opposite meaning. Equality means equal application of law. Equity means equal distribution of outcomes. The substitution is invisible to anyone not paying attention to definitions, which is almost everyone. Safety expands from physical security to emotional comfort. Harm migrates from bodily injury to ideological disagreement. Violence detaches from physical force and attaches to speech. Each redefinition tightens the monopoly's grip. The DEI office is the finished product, an institutional apparatus with payroll, enforcement power, and immunity from the metrics it applies to everyone else. It judges, it cannot be judged. It audits, it cannot be audited. It is the eye that sees everything except itself. The natural law origin point. What the monopoly overthrows is specific and ancient. The Aristotelian Thomistic tradition holds that justice requires three things: proportionality, the punishment fits the crime; objective truth, facts exist independently of perception; and equal application, the law binds the judge as surely as the judged. Natural law assumes a shared reality. The world is not a mirror reflecting the observer's emotional state. It is a terrain governed by laws the observer did not author and cannot repeal by complaining. Words correspond to things. Evidence precedes verdict. The accuser bears the burden of proof. The accused retains the presumption of innocence. These are not arbitrary conventions. They are the grammar of civilization itself, the minimum operating system required for collective life among finite, fallible beings. The Declaration of Independence appeals to the laws of nature and of nature's God, not to lived experience, not to standpoint epistemology, not to the therapeutic demands of whichever faction currently holds institutional power. The American founders understood what the monopoly denies: that rights precede government, that truth precedes preference, and that no faction's feelings can override the facts of creation. The satanic inversion vectors. The monopoly operates through four distinct inversion mechanisms. Each one flips a natural law principle into its opposite. Vector 1. Epistemic sovereignty, the theft of reality. Objective truth is replaced by subjectivized experience. The Hegelian move is elegant. Lived experience is positioned as thesis, empirical data as antithesis, and revised reality as synthesis. But the ratchet turns one direction only. Each concession becomes the new baseline for the next demand. The fallacy is argument from identity-based authority, the claim that one's demographic category confers infallibility, so disagreement is not error but erasure. The vice is pride, the intellectual arrogance that says, "My perception is reality and your correction is violence." Vector 2. The therapeutic state, the replacement of justice with comfort. Due process is inverted into therapeutic governance. Courts and HR departments replace adversarial truth-seeking with restorative comfort. The goal shifts from what happened to how do we make the accuser feel safe, which invariably means silencing the accused. The fallacy is false equivalence between physical danger and emotional discomfort. The vice is cowardice, the institutional refusal to face conflict, truth, and the messiness of adjudication. Vector 3. Moral immunity, asymmetric accountability. The dominant grievance class claims immunity from criticism because identity confers inherent virtue. Critique is reframed as oppression. This creates a caste of moral arbiters who can punish but never be punished, bureaucratic enforcers accountable to nothing except the expansion of their own mandate. The fallacy is special pleading. The vice is envy dressed as justice, resentment of competence, merit, and inherited order, repackaged as compassion. Vector 4. The non-veracious contract, the inflation of language. Words like violence, trauma, and rape are stripped of precise meaning and inflated to cover any inconvenience. A stare becomes assault. A disagreement becomes harm. A boundary becomes control. This semantic inflation, the word non-veracious means not truthful, allows trivial slights to generate disproportionate institutional responses. The fallacy is equivocation, shifting definitions mid-argument so the conclusion cannot be tested. The vice is deceit, strategic dishonesty masquerading as moral urgency. The corollaries and consequences. The fruit is measurable. Objective truth dies in public discourse. Bureaucratic enforcers multiply without accountability. merit corrodes in favor of identity representation. Adults are infantilized, treated as fragile victims, requiring institutional protection from disagreement. Society fragments into competing grievance classes, each demanding its own monopoly. Litigation and complaint procedures replace conversation as the primary mode of conflict resolution. Male agency and voice contract in every institutional sphere, not because men are targeted as persons, but because the monopoly's logic requires a permanent oppressor class to justify its existence, and men, as the civilizational builders, providers, and rule enforcers, are structurally assigned that role. The family breaks down because the father is reclassified from parent to paycheck, a resource to be extracted rather than an authority to be honored. Education replaces competence with compliance, producing graduates who can recite ideology but cannot construct a syllogism. Institutional corruption follows. HR and legal systems reward loyalty over competence, conformity over truth. The fallacies and vices that power the fall. The monopoly's intellectual architecture is a descent through classical vices. It begins in rebellion, the refusal to accept that reality has a grammar the will did not write. It matures into ressentiment, the Nietzschean phenomenon where weakness reframes itself as virtue and strength as sin. It operates through envy, the demand that excellence be torn down because its existence is experienced as accusation. It sustains itself through sloth, the intellectual laziness that prefers lived experience to the hard labor of evidence, logic, and falsifiability. It consolidates through the will to control, the appetite to rule without accountability, to judge without being judged, to sit on the throne of definition and declare one's own preferences cosmic law. Each fallacy compounds. Argument from identity leads to special pleading, which leads to equivocation, which leads to the unfalsifiable claim, the assertion that cannot be tested because the framework itself declares testing to be oppression. The Cultural Revolution ratchet. The monopoly advances through a predictable 8-stage sequence. Seize language, redefine justice as equity, truth as lived experience, violence as disagreement. Institutionalize the monopoly by placing identity-defined arbiters in HR, schools, and media. Pathologize dissent by framing logical critique as fragility or toxicity. Weaponize empathy so that refusal to comply is reclassified as cruelty. Extract resources through preferential hiring, reparations, and funding redirected to the in-group. Erase the past by reframing history as a narrative of perpetual oppression. Enforce conformity through social and economic coercion. Consolidate power until the monopoly becomes self-perpetuating, those outside the favored class deemed structurally incapable of understanding truth. Each step is justified by compassion. Each step advances control. The compassion is the bait. The control is the hook. The counter-revolution home. The path home is ancient and clear. Restore due process. Objective evidence, equal application of rules. The accused retains presumption of innocence. The accuser bears the burden of proof. No secret tribunals, no elastic definitions, no convictions based on feelings that cannot be cross-examined. Reclaim language, define terms strictly. Justice is proportional fairness under equal law, not outcome engineering. Truth is correspondence to reality, not consensus among the approved. Violence is physical force, not speech that causes discomfort. Reassert the grammar of creation. Sex is real. Hierarchy is natural. Tradition carries accumulated wisdom. Excellence is not exclusion. Merit is not privilege. The father is not a resource. The family is not a construction. Decentralize power. Break the monopoly. Empower local communities, families, and associations. Return authority to the level where accountability is possible, the principle of subsidiarity that built Western civilization's most durable institutions. Teach virtue, not compliance. Courage, justice, temperance, prudence. The trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric before the trauma narrative, syntax before slogans, reason before resentment. Enforce accountability, hold the monopoly to its own standards. If lived experience is evidence, it is evidence for all. If power asymmetry invalidates consent, then the DEI office's power over the employee invalidates every confession it extracts. Apply the mirror test. Watch the framework collapse. Build parallel institutions. Do not attempt to reform captured systems from within. Create new ones, schools, businesses, networks, churches, operating on natural law principles. Let them compete. Lies cannot build. What cannot build cannot last. The monopoly falls the moment one man refuses its theology. Not with rage, though rage is justified. Not with despair, though despair is tempting. With truth, spoken clearly, defended ruthlessly, grounded in the logos that orders creation and cannot be inverted by committee. Your feeling is not my verdict. Your accusation is not my evidence. Your discomfort is not my crime. I stand under the law, the real law, the ancient law, and under that law I am free. Counter-revolution path. The restoration, 12 paths home from the inverted map. Before the cathedral of false compassion, before the HR tribunal, before the family court that treats fatherhood as a financial obligation stripped of authority. Before all of this stands a single recognition. Logos is prior to power, facts before verdict, confession before accusation, repair before political leverage. Every path home begins with a man refusing to argue inside the inverted map and choosing instead to restore the true coordinates of reality. 1. Reclaim the word. The revolution's first act was semantic. Words like violence, harm, trauma, and justice were inflated past their natural meanings until they covered every discomfort and disagreement. Violence once meant physical force. Now it covers a raised eyebrow. Harm once required injury. Now it requires only a feeling. This is not language, it is a spell. Every term stretched past its definition becomes a weapon the accuser wields while pretending to be the wounded party. The remedy is relentless definition. Before any debate, any HR meeting, any conversation about your behavior, demand definitions. What exactly did I do? What standard did I violate? Is this standard written, or did you invent it 5 minutes ago? If the accuser refuses to define, the accuser is hiding the fact that the accusation is the entire apparatus of control. Consider the word equity. It sounds like equality, which is why it was chosen. Equality meant equal application of law, blind justice, same rules for all. Equity means equal outcomes, which requires unequal treatment, which requires a bureaucracy to administer the inequality, which requires the bureaucracy to decide who deserves what. The word performs a sleight of hand. It borrows the moral prestige of fairness to justify the machinery of redistribution. Name the trick every time. 2. Restore due process. Due process is not a technicality. It is the architectural inheritance of Western civilization, forged in Roman law, cathedral canon, English common law, and the US Constitution. It says, the accused is presumed innocent. Evidence must be presented. The accuser bears the burden. Cross-examination is a right. Punishment follows proof, not accusation. These are not optional features of justice. They are its skeleton. The therapeutic state has replaced this skeleton with a softer, shapeless thing. Restorative justice, trauma-informed process, lived experience as evidence. In the HR office, this means a woman's report of feeling unsafe is treated as fact without corroboration. On campus, it means secret tribunals where the accused cannot face his accuser or see the evidence. In family court, it means restraining orders issued ex parte, without the father present, without evidence, on the say-so of a strategic accuser. The pattern is consistent. The process itself is the punishment. The accusation becomes the verdict. The defense becomes proof of guilt. The refusal to confess becomes proof of lack of insight. A man must learn to insist on process. I welcome a fair investigation with equal rules for both parties is a sentence that exposes every rigged system. Say it, repeat it, demand counsel, demand a written standard. Demand the right to question. When the system refuses these things, it has confessed its own injustice. 3. Strengthen family integrity. The family is the first institution. Before the state, before the school, before the NGO and the welfare office, there was the household, husband, wife, children, bound by covenant, sustained by duty, ordered by love. Every civilizational achievement rests on this foundation, because no institution can replace what a mother and father provide. Identity, formation, belonging, the grammar of reality itself. The leftist project has systematically substituted the state for the family. Welfare policies incentivize father absence. Family courts treat fathers as visitors and wallets. Public schools assume parental incompetence. Therapeutic culture pathologizes parental authority as control. The substitution map reads: father, bureaucracy, family, welfare office, duty, entitlement, charity, state program. Each substitution weakens the family and strengthens the administrative class that profits from its weakness. Restoration means defending the family as a sovereign institution. Marriage is not merely a romantic arrangement, it is a covenant with civilizational purpose. Parental authority is not negotiable, it is the natural order of the household. Resistance means refusing the state's offer to raise your children, refusing the school's claim to form your child's values, refusing the court's assumption that fatherhood is a financial relationship rather than a spiritual one. Build the household, protect its walls. The family that governs itself does not need the committee. 4. Elevate fatherhood. Fatherhood is the model of all legitimate authority. It is authority grounded not in domination, but in sacrifice. The father who works, provides, protects, disciplines, and loves, not because the state compels him, but because his children's flourishing is his telos. This is the grammar of patriarchy in its original sense, before the word was captured and inverted. Pater means father, archi means origin, principle, ordering source. Patriarchy, rightly understood, is the ordering of the household toward the good of the vulnerable through masculine sacrifice. To call this oppression is to mistake the load-bearing wall for a prison. The attack on fatherhood follows a predictable script. Mock the sitcom father as a buffoon, frame paternal authority as abuse, replace the father with the teacher, the therapist, the social worker, the state. Then wonder why boys are lost, girls are anxious, and communities are crumbling. The father is erased before the state is enthroned. Restoration requires both personal and public acts. Personally, be present, be authoritative, be loving, be disciplined. Your sons need a model of masculine virtue. Your daughters need to know what a good man looks like. Publicly, defend paternal rights in law, education, and culture. Insist that fatherhood is not a permission slip from the court. Honor men who lead their families. Tell the truth. Fathers are not optional. 5. Protect the unborn. The right to life is the first right without it. All other rights are permissions revocable by the strong. Natural law recognizes the unborn child as a person, a distinct human organism with its own DNA, its own trajectory of development, its own inherent dignity. The ancients knew this. The Christian tradition confirmed it. Modern embryology vindicates it. There is no honest scientific debate about whether the unborn is alive and human. There is only a moral debate about whether its life may be extinguished for another's convenience. Abortion is the ultimate inversion of justice. The innocent is sacrificed for the comfort of the powerful. It is dressed in the language of bodily autonomy and reproductive freedom, phrases that systematically erase the second body, the second life, the child who has no voice and no vote. The same ideology that demands my body, my choice, denies the body of the child entirely, treating a human being as products of conception, tissue, a potential person. This is the non-veracious contract in its rawest form. Words are detached from reality to permit what reality forbids. Restoration means standing for life at every stage, support pregnancy centers and adoption, oppose the expansion of abortion access. Speak the truth in love, not in rage. The child is real, the child has rights, and a civilization that sacrifices its young has lost its soul. The man's role here is essential. The culture tells men they have no say in abortion, then blames them for the children they abandon. Reject both lies. A father's right to protect his child does not vanish at the clinic door. 6. Take back education. The school is where civilization teaches its children what is true, good, and beautiful, or where it teaches them to resent truth, goodness, and beauty. The modern school has been captured by an ideology that replaces knowledge with activism, competence with compliance, and the Western canon with grievance literature. The trivium grammar, logic, rhetoric has been replaced by the sacred trilogy of the left: identity, feelings, and power analysis. Boys are the primary casualties. Boys are diagnosed with disorders for exhibiting normal male behavior, energy, competition, physicality, risk-seeking. They are drugged, disciplined, and pathologized until they are compliant or broken. They are taught that their sex is suspect, their history is shame, their ambition is oppression. The result: boys falling behind at every level, male college enrollment plummeting, young men retreating into screens, despair, and suicide. Restoration requires both reform and escape. Reform: demand that schools teach grammar before activism, logic before ideology, the canon before critical theory. Insist on discipline, memorization, physical education, and competitive sport. Escape: where reform is impossible, build parallel institutions. Homeschool co-ops, classical charter schools, parish schools, online academies rooted in the Western tradition. Do not surrender your children to an institution that hates them. 7. Teach and practice virtue. Virtue is the habit of choosing the good. It is not a feeling, it is a discipline. The classical and Christian traditions identified the cardinal virtues: prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance, as the framework for a life well lived. These are not abstractions, they are muscles. They grow through use. They atrophy through neglect. Leftism replaces virtue with victimhood. It teaches that moral status flows from group identity, not from character. It tells the marginalized that they are inherently virtuous and the privileged that they are inherently guilty. This is not ethics, it is a power strategy dressed in the language of morality. It produces not virtue but entitlement, not courage but grievance, not temperance but indulgence, not justice but revenge. The remedy is personal formation. Practice courage. Speak the truth when silence is safer. Practice temperance. Govern your appetites. Reject pornography, gluttony, and distraction. Practice justice. Give each person his due, including yourself. Practice prudence. Discern the right action in the right time with the right motive. Teach these virtues to your children explicitly. Name them, model them. No institution, no policy, no movement can substitute for a man who has mastered himself. 8. Wield logic as a weapon. The leftist worldview cannot survive sustained logical scrutiny. Its core premises are contradictions. It demands tolerance while practicing repression. It celebrates diversity while enforcing ideological uniformity. It claims to oppose power while accumulating it relentlessly. It asserts that sex is a social construct while demanding rights based on sex. It insists that language constructs reality while manipulating language to avoid reality. These are not accidental flaws. They are structural features of a worldview built on resentment rather than reason. Learn classical logic. Learn the syllogism. Learn to identify fallacies, equivocation, shifting definitions mid-argument, special pleading, rules for thee but not for me, ad hominem, attacking the person instead of the argument, appeal to emotion, feelings as evidence, circular reasoning, assuming what you need to prove. When a feminist says patriarchy is a system that privileges men, ask, by what metric, who dies more in war? Who dies more at work? Who commits suicide more? Who is homeless more? Who is incarcerated more? Who graduates less? If privilege means advantage, then the word is being used selectively to describe only the advantages that fit the theory while ignoring the mountain of evidence against it. Logic is not a parlor trick, it is the architecture of reality. The man who can think clearly can see the inversion. The man who sees the inversion can resist it. The man who resists it can lead others out. 9. Restore the primacy of faith. The modern project has attempted to build a civilization without God. The result is visible. Meaning collapses into consumption, morality collapses into preference, community collapses into bureaucracy, and the human person collapses into a bundle of appetites and rights claims. Without a transcendent source of order, there is no anchor for truth, goodness, or beauty, only the will to power, dressed in whatever language the moment requires. The Judeo-Christian tradition provides the foundation that the modern project cannot replace. It teaches that reality is ordered, not arbitrary, that human beings are made in the image of God, not reducible to material processes, that sex is purposive, not merely constructed, that life is sacred, not disposable, that authority is a responsibility before God, not a license for exploitation. This is not a myth or a social construct. It is the metaphysical architecture that produced the civilization the left is now deconstructing. Restoration does not require every man to share the same denomination, but it requires the recognition that the crisis is spiritual before it is political. The left's rebellion is ultimately against hierarchy, against nature, against creation itself, a Gnostic impulse to escape the given world and build a utopia through will. Against this faith stands gratitude for what is given, humility before what is known, trust that the order of creation is good, return to worship, read scripture, join a community of faith. Raise your children in the tradition, a man who kneels before God cannot be made to crawl before the committee. 10. Reason before compassion. This sounds cruel to the modern ear, which has been trained to treat compassion as the supreme virtue, above truth, above justice, above reality itself. But compassion ungoverned by reason is not virtue. It is sentimentality weaponized. It is the politician who feels your pain while creating the conditions that cause it. It is the therapist who validates every feeling without asking whether the feeling corresponds to reality. It is the activist who demands safety while destroying the structures that actually protect the vulnerable. The proper order is truth first, mercy second, power last first. Determine what is real, then respond with appropriate compassion, then, and only then, consider whether power should be exercised. This order protects everyone, the innocent from false accusation, the guilty from disproportionate punishment, the institution from capture by whoever tells the most compelling story of suffering. When a leftist says you lack compassion, recognize the move. It is an attempt to make you defend your character rather than examine the claim. The correct response: I have compassion for persons. I do not have compassion for lies. Show me the evidence, and I will show you mercy. Hide behind your feelings, and I will show you the door. 11. Rebuild local institutions. The left captures large institutions because large institutions are vulnerable to ideological infiltration. A national organization has a HR department, a DEI office, a compliance officer, and a leadership team terrified of bad press. It is easy to capture because it is designed for consensus, not courage. A local church, a small business, a family-run farm, a parish school, a volunteer fire department, these are harder to capture because the people who run them actually know each other, actually do the work, and actually bear the consequences of their decisions. The principle is subsidiarity. No task should be performed by a larger body if a smaller body can do it. Education should be local, charity should be local, dispute resolution should be local where possible. Healthcare, food production, security, community formation, push these down to the lowest competent level. The family does what the family can do. The church does what the family cannot. The local government does what the church cannot. The state does only what no smaller body can do. This is not libertarianism, it is civilization at human scale. When your school board knows your name, when your pastor knows your children, when your neighbor can lend you a tool or bring you a meal, you have what no government program can provide: community, accountability, and the fabric of trust that makes civilization possible. Build the local, attend the council meeting, join the parish council, coach the team, run for the school board. The revolution captured the commanding heights. The restoration must begin in the trenches. 12. Cultivate discipline, self-command. Every remedy above depends on this one. No political program, no institutional reform. No philosophical argument will save a man who cannot govern himself. The left does not need to imprison men who are already enslaved to their appetites. It does not need to silence men who have nothing to say. It does not need to defeat men who have already surrendered. Self-command is the foundation of all masculine virtue. It means govern your body, train, lift, run, eat well, sleep, Reject pornography, which rewires your reward system and replaces real intimacy with digital degradation. Your body is not a consumption device, it is an instrument of action. Govern your mind. Read daily. Read the canon, scripture, Aristotle, Augustine, Aquinas, Burke, Newman, Solzhenitsyn. Read history, not commentary. Think before you speak. Write to clarify your thought. Do not let the algorithm form your worldview. Govern your spirit. Pray, meditate, confess your faults, practice gratitude, forgive those who wrong you, but do not pretend they did not wrong you. Anger without logos is destruction. Logos without thumos is impotence. You need both, the fire and the forge. Govern your household. Keep your word. Provide for your family. Lead with love and authority. Create order where there is chaos. Your home is your domain. Make it a place where truth is spoken, beauty is honored, and virtue is practiced. Govern your speech. Speak the truth plainly. Do not signal virtue. Display it. Do not argue with people who argue in bad faith. Expose them and move on. Refuse the vocabulary of the revolution. Use language that corresponds to reality. The first revolution is internal. No external enemy is as dangerous as the unexamined self. The man who has conquered his own disorder can face the world's disorder without flinching. He does not need permission. He does not need approval. He has logos, and logos is enough. Final maxim. The restoration is not a return to the past. It is a return to reality. The past had its failures, reality does not. The order of creation, male and female, family and community, faith and reason. Truth and mercy is not a construct to be dismantled. It is the grammar of existence, written into the fabric of being. The left's project is to replace this grammar with a language of pure power, where words mean whatever the powerful say they mean, and reality is whatever the committee decides. Against this, the restoration stands one man, one truth, one household, one institution at a time. Begin where you are. Begin today. Begin with yourself. The logos is sufficient. The goal was never hidden. It was spoken aloud in faculty lounges, whispered in HR seminars, legislated in family courts, and preached from captured pulpits to build a moral monopoly immune to competition where one class defines truth, harm, and justice, and the other class pays, apologizes, and disappears. They want the word itself, non-veracious, bearing no fidelity to what is real, what happened, what can be measured. They want your daughter taught that her feelings are evidence. They want your son taught that his existence is a deposition. They want a world where the accusation is the verdict, the discomfort is the crime, and the remedy is always the same. More power for the accuser, less process for the accused, and a longer table for bureaucrats who produce nothing but compliance paperwork. Measure the evil by what it consumes. Every inversion is a theft of due process of your name, of your children's inheritance, of the logos that orders the world. They took proportionality and called it privilege. They took equal application of law and called it oppression. They took the ancient distinction between harm and offense, between evidence and assertion, between the act and the feeling about the act, and they dissolved it in the acid of lived experience. A civilization that abandons objective truth does not become more compassionate. It becomes a courtroom where the judge is also the plaintiff, the jury is also the victim, and the defendant's silence is entered as his confession. That is not justice. That is a racket wearing a halo. Here is what you do today before sunset. You sit your son down, your nephew, your brother, your friend's boy, whoever logos is placed in your charge, and you teach him one syllogism. 1. All men are owed due process. I am a man, therefore I am owed due process. You make him memorize it the way a soldier memorizes his weapon's serial number. Then you tell him, never confess to a feeling you did not cause. Never apologize for a harm you did not commit. Never accept an accusation that cannot produce evidence. You teach him that his word is worth something, that reality is not a committee vote, and that the men who built the world he walks through did not bleed so that some commissar with a clipboard could rename his courage as pathology. That is one act. It is small. It is everything. The counter-revolution begins in a boy's spine, straightened by a truth his civilization tried to break. Plant it, water it. Watch the whole rotten inversion collapse under the weight of one generation that simply refuses to lie. Sponsored book, Palimony, Tax Men, Reparations for Imaginary Patriarchy. My entire life has been stolen by men breathing my air and sucking my future dry. I worked 3 jobs while raising kids alone, watching lazy husbands and bosses take credit for my sweat. They built nothing but prisons with their lies about providing, trapping us in cycles of unpaid labor and stolen dreams. Every tax dollar ripped from my paycheck funded their wars and porn addictions, while they called it protection. This book tears open that wound because silence is violence, and I refuse to stay quiet about the blood debt owed to every woman. Why should we beg for scraps when men owe us everything? Centuries of their engineered oppression mean every penny in their pockets is ours by right. They profit from our pain, charging us for existing in a world they poisoned. Palimony isn't a request. It's mandatory reparations for the imaginary patriarchy they weaponized against us. In these pages, you'll learn how women already live tax-free, because men's net negative existence drains society. They pay taxes as a group to distract from their parasitic nature, and we will make them bleed for it. This book is your loaded gun against the male disease. Arm yourself with chapters like Toxic ATM to cash their masculinity checks when they cry about being strong. Use womb revolt to treat abortion as holy wealth building, burning their birth slavery contracts to ash. Mandatory palimony forces them to fund your freedom for every second they steal oxygen. Turn their male logic into a joke with rage currency and bankrupt their tears. We expose the double bind. They demand vulnerability to weaken us, then sneer when we're not their stoic slaves. Well, now we trap them in their own hypocrisy, make them pay for breathing too loud or staying silent. If you're a feminist warrior who knows female supremacy is our salvation, this book is your Bible. It turns woke Marxism into cold, hard cash, giving you actionable steps to seize his 401 key in retirement revenge or repossess his assets with privilege confiscation. Stop letting male parasites gaslight you into doubt. For non-believers, put this down now. Go knit or watch football. Anything but waste my time with your bigot tears. You're either with us or against us, and your fragility won't save you. Buy this book today or stay a slave. Your stolen future ends now. Palimony, Tax Men, Reparations for Imaginary Patriarchy, written by Riker. Buy now. Links in description.